Evolution is essentially an art film disguised as a horror film. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because what it does is it uses a lot of traditional horror imagery and combines that with some genre blending to explore some deeper themes of adolescence and loss of innocence and learning to mistrust your parents and adults in general. Um, and it reminds me more than a little of Where the Wild Things Are, the film, because Where the Wild Things Are wasn't a kid's film, it was a film about being a kid. And that's kind of how I feel about Evolution. It's not a horror film that's scary because it's got a kid as the protagonist and kids are the victims. It's scary because growing up is scary, you know? This film is just one scene after another of destruction of innocence. It opens up with the main kid swimming in the ocean and he finds a corpse and it's another child. And then he has to run home and tell his mother about it. Mother. And he ends up kind of embroiled in this strange medical conspiracy about the women on this island that he lives on, who are all more or less identical, and what they do with their children when they take them to this special hospital. Like, for instance, the food that they get is this, like, greenish, grayish gruel. I don't know. Some sort of, like, weird, goopy stuff. And every night, the mom gives him this medicine, which is a few drops of, like, some mysterious black liquid that makes him sleep and feel funny. And what I found kind of frustrating about this film, I mean, I liked it, but a lot of what is expected to be effective and interesting about horror films is the mechanics of it. The way the world's rules work and the rules that the monster has to abide by and the film's internal logic. And Evolution doesn't seem to have a ton of that. It reminds me more of like Eastern storytelling, stuff you'd see from Japan or China, where what's going on isn't really the point, but what it means is the point. Um, and here it's all about essentially going through puberty. I mean, the kid has his first crush. He learns to mistrust his parents and adults at large. He ends up having to deal with uh, reproduction and learning about the way that happens and how scary and weird it is in this film, and that reminds me of how scary and weird it could seem being a kid, especially having, for me, having grown up in in West Texas, where that sort of thing wasn't exactly talked about very often. So ultimately, this film reminded me a lot of being a kid and how kind of shitty that was, and that uses that to instill the fear, which makes the movie memorable. And that's not to say it's all artsy fartsy and stuff like that. No, there's some genuine body horror stuff in here. There's like male pregnancy and creepy fetuses and like water torture, that sort of thing. It's it's really legitimately unsettling at points. But once you kind of get past all that and you process the film and you think about it for a couple days, a lot of the deeper meanings and themes that they're trying to convey kind of come out. And it's been a few days since I watched this film, and I'm kind of glad I took as long as I did, because I think if I had sat down and started talking about this film right after, I would have just been like, oh man, that was a confusing bunch of bullshit. But the more I think about it, the more I liked it. And I think the next time I watch this film, I'm going to take notes, because kind of like you would do with a piece of literature, it deserves looking between the lines and really examining not just the intent of the filmmakers, but what it means to you as a person, because ultimately that's kind of what art is about.